Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Mark Marquette. We're so glad you're with us today to stay curious. As you see, we've got the very well waxed mustachioed Terry White over here. Buddy, looking
Nice
good
seeing
today.
you. Yeah.
Great. And you brought with us one of your workers, space workers, Jay Beretti. Jay,
Yes.
welcome to the
Thank
Stay
you.
Curious
Glad to be
family here.
Glad to be here.
Well, we're glad you're here. Tell us, Jay, tell us um, what you did. Where'd you grow up a little bit?
I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me that.
uh,
Where's my Cleveland Browns hat in here? That's a
And,
bad one. No, okay.
yeah. So
That's good. They're
worked at U.S.
one for the
Steel.
thumb. They're
Yeah.
football champs.
Worked at U.S. Steel for
Oh.
9.5 years.
Did you?
As a millwright. Yeah.
Okay.
Electric shop. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So
How'd you get in the space game?
well, we shut the mills down. U.S.
Yeah,
Steel
right.
shut them all
Needed a
down.
job,
So
huh?
the whole Mon Valley, Mental Valley had no work. No, no mills open. So I kept sending my resume down because I worked on overhead cranes up there.
Did you?
And I was an electrical millwright, so we took care of everything on the crane. So I just sent my resume down to, at that time it was Lockheed, and for the overhead cranes, and I got hired. So that was in 1985.
Wow, right at the
So-
beginning of the space shuttle era that
Yeah.
we love to celebrate like no one else on YouTube, we think, Jay. Got Marty Winkle over here on our Streamlabs board. Marty, hi to you. Thanks for we threw a lot of last second things at Marty and he executed them just fine, and I appreciate that. We've been very busy around the museum. We're covered up with guests. We love that. Then Terry White, you've all met before. If you haven't, Terry, tell us what you did for the shuttle. You came in on the thermal protection
It
side.
started out as a mechanic building the ground support equipment and then got loaned to California under Rockwell to work on Columbia on its original build. And then when it came back here and I was working, they asked me if I wanted to be a supervisor on the orbiter's thermal protection system, which was brand new to anyone at Kennedy Space Center. So went from there and worked my way up to I became an orbiter processing chief responsible for getting the orbiters ready to fly. Most of my work was in the orbiter processing facility, but yep. So, and then I had to hire a bunch of people to work as well. And Jay has a story about how I hired him.
Yeah. I was working in the crane crew. We took care of the cranes. We operated them. We stacked
In the VAB, the
vehicles, vehicle assembly building, OPFs, RPSF, HMF, everywhere. Anywhere there was a overhead crane, we operated it, and we put the stacks together for flight. And being a union, you're at the bottom. You work at the bottom. You go by seniority only. And it came I think it was 1990, around 1990, maybe late 89, we had a reduction in force. So I was at the Lockheed facility with another couple hundred people. We're sitting in a room waiting to process out. I got my folder, they took my badges, and we were on our way out. And so, you go from highs, you loving your job, to lows of getting laid off. And they called my name. They said, Jay Beretti, are you here? And I put my hand up. They said, bring your folder and come up here. So I took my folder and walked up to him. He hands me my badges back and he says, go see Terry White at the orbiter processing facility. And I went and saw Terry and interviewed with him. He hired me,
You did. All right.
So,
You remember that?
Yeah. I hired quite a few of the guys out of the crane crew and the heavy equipment guys. And yeah.
And so that was 1983?
No, that was 1990.
Okay.
1990. That was after reduction of force. And so, yeah.
Well, that's great. What a great story. By the way, we want to welcome, we've got some people on here that watch every day, part of our family. We got to say hi to Dave Stange from Macomb, Michigan. They finally warmed up there from single digits to 60s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We get in the 60s here. People still got their parkas on.
Exactly.
some of them
Yeah.
around here. Steve Jokums at the Lake County Spaceport. Are you a modeler at all? Do you like to build models?
Years ago, I have arthritis in both my thumbs now.
Yeah, well,
So that's not
well,
things
Steve's
aren't
got
so
an
easy.
interesting company called the Lake County Spaceport, and they
Okay.
make decals for shuttles and other models, but you can't paint those tiles that you worked on the
No.
bottom of a model. So he's got a decal for that.
Wow.
And decal for things. So thank you. He's been a great supporter of our museum. Hi guys, Cliff Watson's in Pomona, Australia. Friday. Wow. I've been waiting for TGIF all week, you know. And Cliff's out there in Australia having his brekkie. He sat here in this chair twice and talked to us.
Is that right?
He came up for the eclipses. Mitch Rothman, hello from Colorado. Julie Clay, one of our new viewers. Hello, Julie. Bob Mayron is watching. Did you meet Julie Clay at the memorabilia show?
Yeah, I did.
I think you met her.
Yep.
There she was making the rounds. And Carlton Bailey. Hi, Terry, Jay, Mark, and Marty. Always a great show with Terry. Well, we'll see. Okay, don't press your luck there. I'm always
He's
I'm
always
always
waiting for me to
optimistic.
make a mistake. Yeah.
Well,
No, that's Marty over there waiting for us to make a mistake. Tom Celentano's up in Connecticut. I think he's thawing out a little bit. Tommy Usiak, you ever been lost in Lancaster, Pennsylvania?
I've been through it many times and not lost.
That's where Tommy's from. And he was a photographer that photographed over 70 shuttle launches with his brother Mark and his little crew of people there. Your sister Peggy Holbert, hello there, dear. Come by and see us. She loves to hear all these stories. Mark Usiak says one of my favorite launches ever was 133. I believe we've got that launch of yours on there. Love those afternoon launches, he said. Doug Forrest is an artist in Los Angeles, says hello. Mark Thel, 50-degree Minnesota. Boy, they're walking around in shorts and the shirts off.
Yeah.
Cliffy said, I don't get his 4 times actually, but he said there was a typhoon headed to the coast of Australia. Our version of a hurricane. So that's all the people that are interested in hearing you two talk about the space era. We're going to focus on the Alpha, the Omega of the Discovery orbiter, OV-103, the most seasoned of all the orbiters, 39 flights, named after ships of discovery. Captain Cook in the 1700s, he discovered Hawaii in a ship called Discovery. And the Hudson Bay was discovered by a guy named Hudson. A guy named Hudson discovered this body of water, and they call it the Hudson Bay. Yeah. And that was in the 1600s, also Discovery. So a legendary ship of discoveries on Earth, and then just a phenomenal ship. And these guys got personal attention to it. Nobody said, what the heck is this behind us here? There. And Jay's right behind you.
Yes, I can.
Is something that you both recognize. I think it's not the window panes.
Yeah, let me get out of the way
museum
so that they can see it.
Yeah, go ahead and bring that up there, Marty. There you go. What are we looking at, Terry?
We're looking at what we call the ground support equipment door. So this goes on over the access to get into the aft.
While you're talking about it, let me show them on the
aft
model.
Compartment of the orbiter, which is just above the wings right there. So that's how,
right in
on
here.
the side.
Yeah.
So that's how we get into the aft compartment, where we have to go in and disconnect everything from the engines, go in for the auxiliary power units. All kinds of work goes inside the aft. And Jay used to have to go inside the aft to work. So he's got some stories about that.
You may have gone through that very door.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
Well,
we took that off.
the door was off. You take the door off so that we have access to get in.
Go ahead and sit down there, Jay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like when we would roll out of the orbital processing facility, we didn't put the flight door on, but we put this door on to protect everything inside there till we got access back in the vehicle assembly building. So.
Oak Cliff, he's saying from Australia, cyclone on its way, and he's been in front of the camera 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah, he's counting. So
That's good.
He's catching up with Carlton Bailey numbers there. And there's our friend enjoying his cocktail in this evening of Dundee, Scotland. Robert Law is up there in there, and he watches almost every day and has for years. Born out of the pandemic, our Stay Curious program is almost 1,250 episodes. Marty and I have each missed less than 10 or 20, for 10 for me and about 15 or 20 for you, but you've done it remotely, all kinds of stuff. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube. We got a lot of the early shows on YouTube. And next month is 5 years of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And there ain't gonna nobody be celebrating that. Okay.
No, I don't think so.
Except I think it's one thing that like we've all been lobotomies or something. Nobody even thinks about it or talks about it. It's
Yeah.
like but that's where this program was born out of. So we're gonna have fun looking back at Discovery. If you've got a personal memory or a launch, let us know about it. We'll share that. We want everybody to know that we're having a bilingual STEAM Saturday with this beautiful lady, Natalia Sepulveda, who's our volunteer ASM STEAM educator. First Saturday of the month, Jay and Terry, we have 15 kids in elementary school level, and they learn something about science, and they learn a few Spanish words like planet and stuff like that in there. And we're focusing on women in space, so which is the March theme all over the place. And look forward to a Kids Stay Curious. We hope to do this program with Natalia and with kids doing science on a Saturday morning live. And I want to be as little involved in that as possible. We're going to try to get a whole new production crew together for that. And if you want to learn everything about an amazing mission that Mikey Haddad and Scott Vongen, level 4 NASA workers in the Space Shuttle Processing Facility, they think this is one of the top 5 missions of the entire shuttle program of 134 science missions. Yes, 134. 107 was very successful.
Yeah.
Except the reentry, and of course we didn't do anything with Challenger, the 135th launch. So kind of a long program, but boy, we brought in. And I erased the guy's name. Riley Duran was on the telephone from California talking about this mission that mapped about 90% of the Earth to an accuracy that 25 years later is still being used on everything from your models on GPS devices to whatever. So, you guys remember anything about that?
No, like I say,
really.
before we didn't get involved a lot in the payload other
Yeah.
than putting it in, taking it out,
Yeah.
and that, but exactly what it was doing. And we were normally busy enough with 2 other hangars and work at the pad
Exactly.
and that we concentrated on getting the vehicle ready to go to space and come back. And
What's it like when one went out on the pad? You just kind of, all right, I'm done. Now I got to
no, we still had work. We still had
We-
work to do out there.
We had work at the pad. We had work in the vehicle assembly building. Once it rolled out of the OPFs, we had work in the vehicle assembly building. Then when it rolled from the vehicle assembly building, we had work at the launch pads. So you stayed busy, and then once we were down there, we may go to another orbiter and work on it. So you were busy all the time.
Okay, we've got a question, Marty. Go a couple questions maybe.
Yeah, Steve Polka is asking, speaking of orbiter aft compartment, did either Terry or Jay recall the accident that happened after the STS-1 FRF in 1981?
Well, I wasn't there in 81. I didn't start until 1985, so I don't remember.
So what was the incident?
The accident with those techs were killed.
Oh, that was
Oh,
just before the launch of STS-1. Yeah, there'd been a test going on, and
Yeah, I do know.
they had purged the aft compartment with nitrogen. Okay, you can't breathe nitrogen, 100% nitrogen. And so when the test was all done, they made the announcement that the work area was open for normal work. They shouldn't have done that because the aft had not been purged of all the nitrogen. So the techs went up there, went in. Nitrogen doesn't have an odor. So a couple of breaths and they went down. 2 of them wound up, one of them died right away. One of them died en route to the hospital. And the other one took 14 years before he died, but he died from the exposure to the nitrogen at the pad. So we lost 3 technicians that night out at the pad.
Thank you, Steve, for that question. They're honored out at Spaceview Park, just 3 blocks from here, on a pylon of people that lost their life at Cape Canaveral or Kennedy Space Center. And I know one of the widows personally is on a Flag and Memorial Committee with me, Carrie Fuller,
Okay.
and her husband was one of those. And she's champions his memory, of course.
Right.
Thanks for that question, Steve.
And
Marty,
before-
another question.
Before I got there, they also put in, that drove oxygen. Now, what kind of detectors were put back in there? Not back in there, but
Yeah, they had detectors for O2 level.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, we couldn't go in until safety came
Right.
up with a sniffer and made sure that the oxygen level was sufficient. But back then, they didn't do that, so.
right. Okay, next question from Dean Babcock. Jay and Terry, when entering the aft end of the shuttle, how much room was there inside the aft end to disconnect all the fittings?
It was tight.
Were
I
you a little skinnier back then too?
no,
Jay?
I was heavy.
Oh, were you?
I was
Okay.
heavy. I was like I am now. I guess.
All right.
But I got up on top of number one engine, and I got my belt caught on a bolt, and I was stuck. So I felt,
Really?
truthfully, I felt like a slug trying to crawl in there to do my job. But it was tight. But we had access. We did have good platforms inside, but it's just where I had to get that one time was way back into over the engine, and it didn't go well for me. But
What were
most
you
of the
doing?
time-
What kind of things were you doing? Taking those engines out? Like
we were
said?
I think we were getting ready to do that, or
Yeah.
we were doing inspections on something. We were running tests, maybe even hydraulics. I don't remember exactly what I was in there doing. That's a lot of years ago.
Mhm.
And but yeah, it's and then you realize I wasn't the only one in there.
No,
There was five of us.
I was going to say, there's got to be somebody looking over your shoulder,
There-
making sure
There
you're
was
doing.
the quality. There was a USA quality, or at that time, and in fact, there was a couple of qualities, and we had other technicians in there too. So yeah, we were all doing something different too. Everybody had a different job, you know.
Yeah, we had to install all of these platforms, and they were like an erector set.
Yes.
They weren't solid platforms and that for lightweight and all that, but you had to select and build up this whole
Right.
catwalk all through the aft, over the engines, over all the plumbing and all that to get to different places. And it was really aggravating when you had to take out something like the auxiliary power units, because
Yeah.
they were way up at the base of the vertical, extremely heavy, and there was no crane to take them down. So you actually had to manhandle them down on these
Yes.
very narrow platforms.
Platforms. Yes.
Yeah. So when I used to take NASA executives, they'd want to know why we couldn't do a certain task and they couldn't understand it by the drawings. I'd say, come up here. When they'd take one look inside the aft, they said, we have to go in there. I said, yes, this is where the crew, the technicians work inside here every day. And they went, no way. I said, yep, go climb in here. And that was street clothes. In the mid body and the forward, you had to wear clean room
Yes.
attire, but inside the aft was street clothes with special covers on your
And
feet.
on
Now-
your feet, little
yeah.
booties.
Yeah, but they go in there, and this guy could not believe that we're going to have him crawl on these platforms. When he went in there and looked at the job that happened to be all the way down in the aft, basically the technician would be standing on their head for hours on end doing this task. He came out and he says, "Now I see why you said we can't." I said, "Yeah, all you're looking at is a drawing that somebody says they just have to take out these bolts and do this job." I said, "No." I said, and he goes, "I understand." He said, "I can't believe your techs work in there all the time." And I said, "Yeah."
I'm a little claustrophobic, a lot claustrophobic.
There's a lot of
and you
areas-
just describing that, I don't
A
think
lot
I'd
of
like
areas
to-
inside the orbiter you don't want to go
No,
to.
and if I didn't rack up any pictures, very few pictures, but visualize a bunch of round pipes,
Yeah,
gigantic,
Big pipes.
Huge pipes.
huge pipes that are what
They fed the
yeah.
engines. Yeah.
that fed the engine, the
And
fuel pipes.
And
They're-
electrical wiring all over the place is extremely fragile. A lot of things you cannot touch, you can't bump, and all that. And we put covers on a lot of things like the lines, but still, you can't bump into them.
And you had a lot of colors meant things, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
like yellow meant stay.
well, yellow was ground support equipment. It didn't fly.
Okay.
So, anything yellow had to be removed, with the exception of the handholds for the astronauts on payloads. Like if you look at the Hubble mock-up, you'll see some yellow things. That is where the astronauts, when they're on a spacewalk, whatever, they fasten onto or they grab onto. That is the only yellow things that flies. Otherwise, if it's yellow, it doesn't fly.
Marty's got another question on that UCX family microphone.
And before I ask you the question from Michael Bruno, I never found it so. I thought it was fairly roomy back there. I never had a problem.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a slight
It's called-
size difference
it's
between
calling-
Marty and
He's
Jay.
calling me fat.
Marty may have been looking at the height requirement of minimum heights for an astronaut. And we stood beside an astronaut I'm going to show you here in a minute I did yesterday. I think he's the second tallest one because that kind of shocked me. You'll know who that is in a minute, but yeah, Marty's a good one.
Okay,
Go ahead, Michael Bruno's
Yeah.
a new member of our Stay Curious family. Thank you, Michael.
Would you ever change out RCC tiles? Was it extremely complex versus regular tiles?
It was a totally different
Yeah.
process because the RCC are extremely heavy, and they are
Well, I was going to say, yeah.
and they are bolted on from the inside. The tiles and the blankets and the frizzy, the felt are all glued on. But the reinforced carbon, we have to take off panels above and below the leading edge of the wing, because the leading edge of the wing is the gray material. We take off panels above and below to get down inside, to get to the fasteners, to unbolt them, and then they're extremely heavy to lift them down. They are a thin material, but they are extremely heavy. And as we found out with Columbia, extremely fragile. This is just the thickness of one off the leading edge of the wing. This happens to be a piece from the test article that we did to prove exactly what happened to Columbia. So very heavy, but it sees the most heat. It does see 3,000 degrees on re-entry. So
Almost like a clay feel to it,
Yep.
not a metal feel to me.
No.
No, it's not.
It's more of like a clay pottery
Mhm.
type of feel to it there.
If you look
Where's
real-
this sample
real-
come
real
from?
close-
And
Yeah,
is
you
it-
show them the bottom
yeah,
because
you can see the fibers and stuff in it. So
yeah,
yeah.
let me get this so I get the light just right on that. There we go.
And it
Yeah.
starts out as rayon cloth.
Fibers in
Yeah.
here.
But it takes months to build up one of these panels. I could have had a new tile built in 2 days, but it takes months to build another reinforced carbon panel.
Very good. Good questions there, everybody. Lynn Feather's watching. You know Lynn, everybody?
Hi, Lynn.
You know Lynn too?
Hi, Lynn.
She's
We missed
going,
you.
She's going, how'd Jay get on there? All right. Well, he put his name on the back of a $50 bill. And
Yeah, well.
I said, sit right here. Okay.
I
We're
was
going to,
drafted, Lynn.
let's look at a couple pretty pictures here. That's what we're talking about today. Tell your friends that Terry is on once a month. Some of the greatest educational programs on the internet, I think, learning from this man. And here is your friend Steve Smith. And we had Nick Sedler said, one of our watchers said, salute to the technicians. Well, here's an astronaut that thinks you two are his heroes.
Yes, I was at a
Hey.
luncheon where Steve was giving a speech, and in the middle of his speech, he just stopped talking and stared at the audience.
Yes.
And everybody looked around like, what? And he says, even astronauts have heroes. And they looked at him, and he pointed at me, and he says, my hero's sitting right there. He said, Terry White is one of the people that worked so hard to get our vehicles ready to fly, to take us safely to space so we could accomplish our mission and bring us home safe. He says, so astronauts consider all those people working on the shuttle program as heroes. So
What do you have to
passed
say
message.
about that?
Well, I mean, their lives are in our hands, and you get to know them. You get to spend time with them. They take us on. They would after checkout.
Yeah.
They would do a little picnic or party for us, and we'd get together and spend a little time with them, getting to know them. And so, yeah. So you're aware of what you're doing, and you're really taking extra care because you know that their lives depend on what you do on that orbiter.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like all the posters we've shared, that are incentive. Of course, the Snoopy poster
Yeah.
as inspiration to do your job or we'll die type of thing.
yeah.
Snoopy, the mascot of the shuttle era there. What do you miss most about what happened when you all got laid off on this month was Discovery's last mission 14 years ago.
Yeah, well, you miss the people. We were a family, and we still stay in touch somewhat. We still have get together. I get together with a couple guys that worked with me, on Thursday mornings for lunch or breakfast. But I do miss it, and I miss the people. I miss the job. It was an interesting job. It was like I always tell people, it wasn't a job. It was more like a hobby, because the what you had to do, even to pre-fit a tile. Because when I left the crane crew, Terry hired me. I went into the thermal protection system, and you had even though all these tiles may look 6x6, they're all different. The orbiter substrate is different in every every area. Whether you have a 60 thousandths gap or mismatch, you sometimes have to sand the tiles in. So what you do is so intricate. It's like you're like building. They make the tiles across the street from us at the TPSF, but we had to pre-fit them, make sure it was right, make sure the gaps, make sure the steps. From one tile to another tile, you can only have a certain step, or it would create a downflow wind, air.
Yeah, the flushness. And some of the areas were so critical, the gap between tiles had to be at least 19 thousandths of an inch, but couldn't exceed 30 thousandths of an inch. So you only had 11 thousandths of an inch tolerance in that. And the step was really critical, as Jay was saying. Yeah, so the tiles had to be almost flush. But it was amazing that you would come into work, especially in the morning before a lot of people were there, come in and walk underneath an orbiter, and you're looking at it knowing that you were one of the handful of people that were actually doing the hands-on work, getting this vehicle ready to go to space and do its mission and come back. And a handful of people in the entire world that was doing this.
You couldn't learn this anywhere. I mean, you can't go to school and learn thermal protection systems. It's an on-the-job training. And I remember when I went from the crane crew into the thermal protection system, they brought out what we call the MLOs, the workbooks, how everything's done. Oh my goodness, you got to learn all this stuff, because we had to be certified for every little task we did. And now you only have, when you're doing a job, you had our engineering our quality looking at it. You had maybe Boeing quality looking at you, and then you had NASA quality. So everything you did was scrutinized heavily.
Yeah.
You had to get comfortable with people looking over your
It's
shoulder.
an environment I've thought about being around you a lot. I've pretty much had jobs all my life where I'm self-motivated and not supervised.
We had a lot of technicians who were self-motivated, but
I've not been supervised much as a salesperson or even a sales manager, except by one or two people in there.
But I always wore a hat at work, and when I wanted to check up on these guys and girls and see what they're doing, I'd take my hat off because people didn't recognize me if I wasn't walking around with a hat. And all of a sudden, guys like Jay look over his shoulder. So when did you get here? I said, I'm just watching you work.
We got a couple questions there. We'll get to them here in a minute, Marty. I wanted to continue this conversation just a little bit further as we're talking with Terry White over here, who was with the shuttle from the beginning. It's wonderful 30-year legacy. He joined it in '78 when the orbiter showed up here, about half built. We've heard those stories before. And we've got Jay Beretti here. And welcome, Jay, who was hired by Terry in 1990 when he got laid off as another job. Jay, you were an iron steel worker in Pittsburgh and creating, as cool a job as that was, maybe, creating steel girders to be put in a skyscraper in Manhattan or Chicago or somewhere. And now you're working for America's $2 billion each fleet of 5 orbiters. You were around when there's 3 of them in there. What did that make you feel like as an American doing a job that was?
I would, if we were the only people in the world doing this. I was proud of my job, and if Terry would give me somebody to take around for a tour, I got emotional talking about it. Starting with, I came from U.S. Steel, and now look where I'm working on. I'm working on. Well, I remember the first time I lifted the orbiter in the crane, when I was in the crane crew, I thought, man, I don't make enough money, but
sweating bullets that you might drop it.
But even that, I have enjoyed my whole career, and it has gone from, one place to another, and it evolved, and so, there's nothing but pride, and the people we worked with, you see that pride when you talk about it.
Well, some people say that we'll never forget about the Apollo era that my co-producer Marty worked on, the lunar module for Grumman. We'll never forget about that because there's always going to be a moon up in the sky. But once there's no space station orbiting the Earth, is the space shuttle going to be forgotten?
I hope not. You know, you look at Hubble, what we've done with repairs, and I mean, the orbiter was able to do things that nothing else that we have today can do.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go up in space, grab a satellite, put it in a payload bay, bring it back down to Earth. You can't.
Which Discovery did for the first time on
Exactly.
51A, I believe.
Yes, and so we were able to do things that, you know, no one else could do. And I know when I go back to Pittsburgh, we still have a cottage up there. We go back there. People were so interested. You know, I used to take little memorabilia to give it to the restaurant near there. They just always around me asking questions. So, but I hope people remember. I hope people, you know.
Terry, what do you think? The legacy. He's got his STS-1 and STS-135 shirt on there, Alpha and the Omega.
There are some people who will always remember it, you know, and even if they only ever got to see one launch or hear about it, but you know, there was poor communication about all the benefits that came from the space program, and not just from the shuttle program, but Apollo, Mercury, Gemini, and even before that. But people don't understand it, everything in their day-to-day life. And I brought you a bunch of NASA spinoffs that you can look at later. And these are all things that came about, and anybody in the audience that's interested in it, you can go to the spinoffs website and you can look at all different kinds of things in your day-to-day life that are spin-offs from space that we would not have, or we would not have manufactured as well as they are if it wasn't done for the space program. And there's all kinds of medical advances. And I think if there were just some tag on that, people would really remember it, that the space shuttle or the space program made it possible for you to have this.
Well, no doubt. We talk about it all the time, Jay and Terry, that the space shuttle era revolutionized our world that people can't even appreciate in ways.
Yes.
There's definitely three segments of its wonderful 30-year era up to 25 when we had the disaster. Then the middle section is doing a lot of science and space, like we talked about with STS-99 yesterday, that has translated to the third era, the construction of the space station. Which Discovery, I think, had 29 missions of its 39 to the space station. Someone can look that up for me on there. But yeah, great insight there, guys. I wanted to show a couple pretty, I'm going to skip that, Terry.
Okay.
We've got 11 beautiful shuttles launched in the month of February. All five orbiters flew. There's Challenger up there, 41B. Today, orbiting for the last time 14 years ago is STS-133 there. The beautiful Robert McCall, his last piece of artwork that Tim Gagnon helped finish. And there's a shuttle era, Hubble Repairs 82 there, where Steve Smith was on that, I believe. And I love 130. That's the cupola taken up for the last time. So you got so we love talking about it because a lot of people are very interested in it, as you can tell by the questions here, but we don't want these 350 American astronauts alive in our communities to disappear on us. We want them to be out there just like the Apollo guys have been.
Well, we wouldn't have 40 countries around the world that have astronauts that flew into space if it wasn't for the space shuttle.
That's right.
Yeah.
Look at a couple beautiful. No, we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't at all. Companies like Belgium and the Netherlands owe the shuttle to their revered astronauts that are there. Canada for the same.
Brazil.
In there. Brazil, Pontus up there.
Yep.
I'm going to show just kind of quickly here let me go back there, making them a couple aspects of the orbiter. Here's your garage.
That's it.
Number 2.
That's OPF2. Yes.
Yeah. And when you take the tour at Kennedy Space Center, they're around the VAB, and they have that big opening at the top for the stabilizer or the rudder to get through there. I
Yep.
always thought that was interesting.
Yeah, there was a door that opened, you know, just like, I guess they didn't want to make the doors, the main doors that tall, so they made the main doors where they were manageable. And then we had doors that actually went up for the stabilizer.
The same thing in the north end of the VAB. When they brought it in, they had to modify it to be
Yeah.
able to clear the vertical stabilizer.
There's the patina you see on Discovery. What's going on here, Terry, do you
Well,
think?
this is post landing.
Okay.
They've landed, safe the orbiter out there. The big hoses, 3 hoses you see right there, are supplying the air inside the orbiter. We still had to maintain the correct temperatures for the payload and that, and for the crew module and that. Plus, the people we had inside there wanted to be able to breathe. So it's a big air conditioning unit that's out of the picture and that, but it's providing the air, and then we have units providing the power and all that, because we have to keep certain systems inside the orbiter still running and that. And we have to protect payloads and that. So all that's connected up until we get inside the orbiter processing facility, get the orbiter spotted exactly where it's supposed to go, lift it up to its maintenance height, which is up off of the floor, and then hook it up to the ground power and the ground cooling and that. Then we could disconnect that truck and get it out of the way. So that takes a
Amazing.
couple of days to get that done. So,
It does. Is it 24/7?
oh yeah,
Crew working
24/7.
around
Yep,
there?
yep.
So
And limited access. We can't
Yeah.
even bring a lot of people in to work in the orbiter processing facility till we get all that safed and shut down. So,
there could be still experiments on there and so forth
Oh,
to
yes.
come out of there,
Yep,
and,
yep.
and live guinea pigs and
yeah, we tried to
rats
get the
and-
live stuff out at the runway.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But yeah, there was other stuff in there. And of course, the payload customers, they're not worried about what you have to do with the orbiter. They all want their payload out now. And says, well, sorry, you're not getting it out for several days. So
So Jay, I've heard about this before. What was the best air freshener to buy? For inside the orbit?
we didn't let them spray air
I
freshener
don't know.
inside
I
there.
know. It
It
wasn't.
had an odor to it.
Yes, a little bit.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I mainly worked when I was a technician in the aft.
We've heard you open up
So-
the orbiter door like this. With your,
And-
yeah, you said that with your nose
Yeah.
on the other side of the doggone thing.
Mainly my work was in the aft. And
So, an event like this, the rollout to the pad, everybody wants to go see it, right?
Yes.
I've seen people on their cars on the road beside there eating chicken, and
Well, they would give
this is your
yeah, they gave passes
Yes.
toward the end of the program
Uh-huh.
where you could get a pass and bring your family out and sit right outside
there's
the
the
VAB.
there's the baby you've worked on to get
Yeah.
it ready to go out again,
exactly.
and she's going to go to space. And
Yeah.
what'd that feel like watching that?
Goosebumps. And in fact, as a technician, I used to ride as a crane crew. I would ride the crawler out.
Oh, would you?
Yeah,
Okay.
would ride it out to make sure, especially when it's coming out of the vehicle assembly building, make sure the clearances are good, make sure everything's good. It would ride ride it out to the pad.
Dean Babcock, he was going to ask you, were you nervous the first time you lifted an orbit?
I think I would. Yeah, I was. You know, I started off with the segments, the SRBs, and they're not too bad. You know, they're stable.
They're gunpowder. If you
Yeah.
drop those things,
So
what do you
you're-
mean that's
you're-
not too bad?
You're looking at things
That's a
differently.
bomb.
I'm looking at things. Will it swing?
Oh, okay.
See, now they weigh enough and they're smaller enough in diameter that they really didn't swing too much unless you made a mistake. Now you go get the external tank. That's a big piece of equipment and it's light. So if you did something jerky with the crane, you better know how to catch that swing. So the orbiter, yeah, I was nervous the first time
Okay.
because we took it from the horizontal system, went vertical with it, and then I clocked it to take it over to stack it. So there's 2 people in every crane. You had 2 operators. One operator operated the hoist and basically the hoist, and because that was intricate. You had each revolution of the dial was say 5/8 of an inch. So if they tell you to float up 1/16 of an inch, you could do it. They were DC cranes. They were that intricate. Now the other operator, he operated the trolley.
200
and the bridge.
tons, a 16th of an inch.
250 tons.
Oh, excuse
And
me.
now they're 300 tons in there. I never had an opportunity to operate the 300 tons, but the 250s, the 175.
Yeah.
The 175 took one end of the sling, and the 250 took the other end, and we would rotate them in
Yeah,
the
now,
vertical
that
position.
1/16 of an inch is the thickness of a nickel. So he could
Yeah.
move it the thickness
Yes,
of a
you could
nickel.
do it.
in
We will.
increments.
Actually-
I can tell they're interested in that. We'll have a whole show of that
Okay.
with you on
It's
here.
actually, you could release the brake. In other words, you're free flowing, and not even because you have a potentiometer there, it would just hold it with no
Yeah.
brakes.
Yeah.
So we call it floating.
That's a beautiful picture there. Always to see. Of course, there's Mark Usiak's photo
Yeah, beautiful.
of the gorgeous launch for the last time. And up there in orbit, gorgeous. That is Discovery. And there's another launch site photo that Tom Usiak may have took there at 14 seconds after the launch. Those flags of the shuttle bought Marty a couple meals, didn't they, Marty? He bought them for $20 at the your PX there, your exchange, $20, and yeah, you got a couple meals out of those, and you sold them on the. I think they went for maybe his or another one's $400. They can go for now, those flags, and of course the beautiful landing by Carlton Bailey, I believe, took that shot. Discovery there, of course, the Discovery's up there on the underneath the pilot's or commander's side there.
Yep.
Marty, we got a couple questions for these guys. Let's fill that in.
All right, Michael Bruno's asking, would you know how the Starship TPS tiles differ from the shuttle ones? They seem to have more issues making them work.
What-
Yeah. I don't
The
know,
Starship
but,
tile.
Oh, the Starship tiles.
yeah,
compared to
but
these.
because I haven't been involved
Yeah.
with those, and I haven't had chance to talk to some of the people that's in that working on
No,
those.
I haven't
but
either.
they're not doing something right, because if you do it right and follow the right procedure, the tiles will stay. But I know several of the new vehicles that are using tiles are struggling with the tiles to stay. And when I did some answers over the phone for some of their issues, I said, you guys do not understand. You don't have the right people in that. And they were pushing to have me come give them advice, as a consultant. And I said, nope, you're not offering me enough money to disrupt my life and go all the way to Colorado to explain
Yeah,
things
they-
to you. And you don't want to listen. I could tell that by the phone. I said, you don't think you have a problem, and I'm
So you've
telling you-
actually talked to SpaceX people, you're saying.
Well, not SpaceX,
SpaceX.
but what's the
Orion.
Yeah,
Oh,
what's
Orion.
the other one that was built in Colorado?
Starliner,
No, the little one that looks like a little orbiter.
Dream Chaser.
Dream Chaser and that. Yeah, I talked with them and that, and they couldn't.
Yeah,
And the guy who wanted me to talk with him and that, they said, Terry's the best guy to answer your questions for this, but you got to believe him. And they said, nah, we're not.
Hold
we'll
out
get
like
it."
a sports athlete
They-
there.
Yeah.
Get an agent and milk them dry.
They did away with our processes.
Yeah.
They did away with all our processes. So there was no paperwork. There were no the glues that we use, the RTVs, all those chemicals, all those ratios were lost, and they did away with them.
Yeah, they
because
did the same thing with the Apollo, because they came to me about
Right.
could we duplicate the heat shields on Apollo, and I said you didn't retain any of that. You got rid of all that stuff. And
They
I said-
shredded it, threw it away. Just,
and I said, and the people that did
Right.
it have all passed, so you can't go to them and ask them questions.
I
But
guess one.
no, wait,
company to another.
wait. Marty's over here.
yeah, but he didn't
Yeah, I
build the
know.
heat shields
Yeah,
on the capsule,
I
so
know,
that
yeah.
and that's what said.
That's interesting.
You don't-
And it's probably shocking to a lot of you that watch the show consistently. That's sort of a shocking thing to me, is that the next generation is not dependent on the legacy of the previous
It
space
is.
workers.
And they asked me to go. I got a phone call asking me if I could go to Denver and teach. But I had back in '87, I really shattered my leg. So I had just had a series of surgeries. I couldn't go anywhere, So, and I wasn't going to go out there. But yeah.
Yeah, I've
So
heard
it-
examples, for example, with the Artemis LOX loading system, the liquid onto the Artemis. They were having trouble with the seals, and the person that I would talk to was complaining about having to, work on that. Why don't you talk to some shuttle people? this person was the engineer. It was another job there, but I said, don't they talk to shuttle people about that? They did that all the time. And no, they haven't. And then one day they finally cleared it up. And how they clear it up? They talked to some shuttle people.
Yes, SpaceX was like that when the shuttle program ended. I was helping people find jobs in that. And I went and talked to SpaceX, and I said, nope, we don't want any space shuttle people. I said, no, you have the same systems we have. It's not the same vehicle, but you have the same systems. No, we don't want it. And then a year and a half later, SpaceX is calling me and says, well, we hired a couple of your people, and they're great. Do you have any more? We want that knowledge and all that. I said, I tried to tell you that a couple of years ago, and you ignored me. So, yeah.
Dean Babcock saying he's unbelievable that this information wasn't saved for future reference.
Nope.
I think you're going from
We
one
say, I
company
can hear
to
we save
another.
it in a way sometimes.
Yeah.
Space workers come in, Dean, with a box of stuff, and I look at it, and some of it's technical. We got a lot of technical manuals and stuff, but we don't know what we're looking at. For example, like this door behind us here.
Yeah.
Had no clue what that was when somebody dropped them off. Don't know how they got them. We don't ask any questions. Okay.
Yeah.
But we've got 4 of them, and some other stuff, and we're going to put them up for sale at our auction, and probably have a display with one of them. But
Yeah, you wouldn't believe the number of things that went to the scrapyard, including flown hardware went to the scrapyard. So
amazing. So Marty, clean up a couple of the questions we have there for Jay Beretti with us here. First time, you enjoying yourself, Jay?
I am. It's good to talk. I haven't talked about this stuff in quite a few years.
Well, good. That's
it's
what
bring
we're
back
about.
a lot of good memories.
We're glad Terry brought you by. He's a good boss, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was. He was a friend too. I think we became pretty good friends. So.
But the shuttle era is, I've been in the newspaper business most of my life, and that's another group of kindred spirit people that are competing with each other in a way, but to get the headline stories or whatever back in the day, not so much today as that exists, but then we're friends, outside.
My technicians would go hunting together, we'd go fishing together, we'd have barbecues, we'd have all kinds of things to interface together away from work and to meet the families, because we were a family at work, but you were away from your real family for a lot. We worked a lot of hours. I mean, there was times I got my butt chewed, but I had 125 hours of work a week. That's the equivalent of 3 full-time jobs.
If I had a 3 a.m. launch, like I know you guys did once in a while, I would be or even like a 7 o'clock in the morning launch, I'd be so paranoid about the traffic holding me up to get to work that I'd want to spend the night before the launch. Did that ever occur? Because there's very few roads on this island.
But you weren't supposed to come out way before your shift. So if you were coming out to watch the launch and that, but yeah, it was, I'd get calls in the early days. I'd get calls at 11 o'clock at night. We need you at the pad at 1 o'clock in the morning. We got a problem, and go out there, and they had it all screwed up, and I'd have to run everybody off and look at what the issue was. And I'd start telling them, well, I need this person, that, but that was common. My wife would get mad because all through the night, I'd get calls every hour on the hour about a problem they had. And I said, that's why I put supervisors on 3rd shift, so they could handle these things. And they would call me to get the thing. And finally, 4 o'clock in the morning, I just go to work rather than disturb the house. So,
all right, turn it over to Marty now.
Hey, Michael Bruno's asking, would you say the orbiters were good for many more flights?
Oh, definitely. We never had any issues with the orbiter. Any failures we had were caused by other systems.
yeah, but
Whether external tank or solid rockets.
but the last of the flights of the orbiter, they were coming back so clean.
Yes.
We could almost just change the tires and change the payload and go fly again. I mean, there was other things we had to service, but we were finding very few anomalies. We'd worked out.
Tiles were sticking.
Yeah.
Well, we never had tiles falling off,
no.
but since that STS-1 and 2, but no, it was, they just came back so much cleaner. Not a lot of damage to them and that. Plus, we refined a lot of processes, so we cut down on our workload. So, the customer didn't always like what we did, but in the end, when they saw the results, then they said, hey, that was smart. I said, yeah, that's what we kept trying to tell you. So,
Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, the orbiters were good. Like you said, they're coming back with less gripes all the time. But the whole STS program was unsafe due to the foam.
Yes.
So to a large degree, it kind of made sense to end the program.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying they should have ended it. It made sense to, but I think they should have carried at least one orbiter until we got our own, until we
And
got
that-
SpaceX.
And that's
on
what
the
we
feet.
told them too. We should carry one just for changing out crews in space, fly it once or twice a year and that, but they didn't want to go on. And the foam, the thing could have been resolved by doing it differently. I mean, they should have put heaters on that area. They should have quit trying to bond the foam that wasn't sticking and just said, okay, we'll install heaters so that the ice doesn't build up. That's what the foam was for, to stop ice from building on the tank, but they opted not to do it. So.
We're talking about the Discovery, its legacy in the shuttle era, with Terry White and Jay Beretti here. Jay's first appearance on Stay Curious, and he was hired by Terry. We're enjoying quite a conversation here. As I get out my shuttle scroll here, is
I've
there?
seen that on the videos.
Yeah,
yes.
there's the real thing. I got some
Wow.
autographs on there.
A couple more shows and you'll get the autograph stuff.
There you go. OB 103. Okay, and that's something to learn to be a space geek is the orbiter tail numbers. This was the most traveled, 39 flights, 252 crew members. Okay, tickets punched, let's say, on it. That probably represents out of 252, that might be 150 different humans. But like Terry said, a lot of one and done Europeans
Yes.
on there, and Brazil and other countries that never would have gone to space. Of course, Russia took their communist bloc countries up early. Orbits around the Earth, 5,830 orbits. So that's 5,830 sunrises and sunsets. 100 and almost 150 million miles. All right, the Earth is 93 million miles from the sun, and we're about 150 million miles away from Jupiter right now, probably. In time and space, exactly a year, 365 days. And of course, STS-1, its first maiden flight was 49 on May 7th, 1992. So 92 to 2011. That's almost 30 years it made. No, not 20. It's almost 20 years. And 19 years in service there. And like they all say, it's still going strong. Here's where we had the landing there. The beautiful montages that were done for all the shuttles and all their patches there. And this one particularly highlights the two very important missions the Discovery did was the return to flight, STS-26 shown there when STS after the Challenger explosion, and then the STS-114
Post-Columbia.
Yeah, post-Columbia there. So what was that like? We've talked to Terry many times about the post-Columbia flights and continuing after Columbia.
Columbia, yeah, that's something I'll never forget because Terry sent me to Texas to identify parts and pieces.
Nacogdoches and all
I
that.
was in Corsicana, but I had to go to Nacogdoches and deliver stuff and pick stuff up, pick parts and pieces up. But everybody was focused. I would say everybody was really focused on return to flight because, of what happened. And I'll never forget, there was so much what happened. We saw the foam strike the front of the RCC. And so many people, we were worried, before. But return to flight, it was taking a deep breath and you're doing the best you can, I don't know how to say it. It's just,
And there was a big delay
yeah.
because NASA wouldn't make the decision. And I even told the NASA administrator when I was in Washington, and Mike McCulley introduced me to him, and he says, "Yeah, Terry White works on the floor and that." And the guy said, "What's the feeling on the floor?" So the feeling on the floor is we need to go fly again. I said, the people in charge need to make the decision. We've figured out what we can do. We've done it. We've done all the maintenance required and that. And We just need to get the decision. This is okay now. Go return to flight, start processing it to put it back in space. And he says, and I'm the person that has to make that decision, and I'm not ready to make it yet. I said, well,
Which minute was that? Dan Golden?
no, that was post Golden. He was the one that NASA brought in to downsize the space community and that, but begins with an O.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
I know who you mean.
yeah, but yeah. So, yeah. So,
And I said, Steve
and-
Jokums is going to
O'Keefe.
help us there. Steve's got
Sean
a.
O'Keefe.
yeah, Sean O'Keefe. And yeah, Mike says,
Sean O'Keefe.
yeah, Mike says, I
yes.
probably should not have introduced you to him because you tell it like it is. I said, I just told him, he asked the question, and I told him, and I said, they're just wanting to go back and put it back into space. We want to go
Yeah,
do
Sean
our
O'Keefe,
job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh, he was polite about it. So,
and for me, it was a little different too, because right after, return to flight, I went from a technician or a lead technician to a manager. So for me, things were a whole different perspective, you know.
Wow.
I had
I
to
had
remind
to
him you
step-
thought my job was easy. Now you made it
So
a job.
I was an OPF-3 with Discovery for many years. I don't know how many years we had Discovery, but quite a few.
Mhm.
You know, and yeah, it was a different perspective for me, you know. But-
So Discovery to use like that, maybe if you're a car nut, that you know,
Oh, yeah.
whatever, that Triumph
Yeah.
that you've been babying for years and stuff like that. Or
Well,
is,
we
is
were-
that how you felt about the machine?
I hired in. I worked on Enterprise, or not Enterprise. I worked on Endeavor. You know, then we got Atlantis, and I did many mods on Atlantis. So when I went to see Atlantis not long ago, and over at the the spaceport there, and man, I'll tell you what, how emotional you get, you know.
Hmm.
But Discovery was my baby, and I will go to the Smithsonian to see her one of these days.
It's not as impressive as the Atlantis.
No.
No, Atlantis, no,
Marty,
it's not. but-
Marty, go ahead on that USAC family microphone.
Okay, Mark, we have two questions. One from Mark Usiak. What's your opinion on why they never proceeded to make a Shuttle C cargo version only?
Well, originally they didn't have any ability to fly the orbiter unmanned. The Russians did. They never flew astronauts in their orbiter. But no, they didn't want to take the chance on somebody lowering the gear in space, the landing gear in space, and not being able to close it.
Mhm.
So they didn't have that option in there. We did a mod that they could do that, but they did not load the program, so the astronauts would have had to load it. But to send up an unmanned cargo only spacecraft, I don't know that I was never in any discussions about that. It was a feasible thing, but then you'd get the naysayer saying, well, you're so worried about flying it, why are you risking all that cargo and all that money flying one if you don't think it's safe enough to fly people in it? So, and it was safe enough to fly people in it. So
Good answer there. I want to just point out that Steve Jokums really enjoying this. He said the craftsmanship exhibited by the space shuttle team is absolutely incredible. All these guys are true American heroes.
Thank you.
And
girls, because we have
Yeah,
a lot
yes.
of female
A lot of female.
technicians,
yes.
engineers, management. So.
but we call you national treasures here at the American Space Museum because you've done something that no one else on Earth has done. And so, Marty, go ahead. We've got a lot of great interest here from you guys today.
We have a question from Jersey Mike Subs. Do you think it was smart to reuse shuttle components on SLS, or should they have spent the money on developing a new launch system?
Before that, we'll order a number 13 and two
Yeah.
14s.
But I was gonna ask, why don't
light on the mayo.
I was gonna ask, why don't we have the Jersey Mikes in Titusville?
Yeah. when you have something that works, like the boosters, I know there was the issue with the O-rings and that, but when they finally solved that problem and that, you've got these boosters that are working. We kept using the boosters over and over again, you know. But so using the boosters on the next one, only they've added a 5th segment, but my understanding is they're not planning on recovering any of those. I don't know if it's because of the height that they release and that, since I'm
Waste
not
of
in the
money.
program, but yeah. So, you know, the reusable parts, I don't know why they're not reusing. They are reusing the shuttle main engines. So,
Yes, yes.
Yep.
And also, we have the external tank, and the way the vehicle is mounted, the external tank issues is not a problem. So why not?
Yeah, because the engines are at the base of the tank now, so there's nothing, if the tank sheds foam, there's
not
nothing
gonna
for it
strike.
to impact, because the crew portion is actually
Yeah.
on top of the tank.
Yeah, so why reinvent the wheel?
Yeah. So, and those things work. They needed some more tender loving care, but they work.
Well, let's show where Discovery's ended up here. We've really enjoyed this as you have. We've made a new good friend here in Jay, we hope.
I'm glad to be here.
This is the some of the crew people, or some of the workers here that say, Smithsonian, please embrace, cherish, love, and learn from her as we have. The team DPI, or DP, the DPI team? DPA or DPT team.
The Discovery Processing Team, I
Yeah,
guess.
That
there you
probably-
go. Yeah, this was the team that processed her to go to Washington. Okay, back in there, and Steve Lloyd was part of this team. I don't
Yeah.
know if you met Steve on
Oh, yeah.
our board of directors. So Steve supplied this. That's Steve right there. He's holding
yeah, we
police
work
right
with
there.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, Steve's there. So this is her all buttoned up, ready to go back, become a museum piece. And Mark Usiak took these pictures flying over our nation's capital
Yeah, they did a fly around.
and the Washington Monument.
Beautiful.
How cool is that to be there, see that? You didn't go for that ceremony, did you?
Nope.
Enterprise was
Enterprise.
being shown there at the Udvar Hazy, and then look at the patina, the dirty streak marks and everything on Discovery there. A photograph that will never ever be duplicated
That's
again.
not dirt.
Yeah,
It's not dirt.
No.
That's space dirt.
That's flight.
That's flight.
exactly.
Is that what you called it? That's flight.
Well, we didn't call it dirt, so
We
yeah.
didn't call it dirt. No.
Well, we didn't call it patina. What'd you call it?
It was basically the scorch marks.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Scorch
yeah,
marks.
some of the stuff is getting darker and darker, and the tiles are getting grayer and grayer. So, yeah.
Well, tremendous. Marty said we had a record number of live viewers today, and we thank you so much. People like Elena Adhikari. She's watching from South Africa, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, we probably got we got 3 continents:
Did Travis
Australia,
manage-
South America, Europe, and
North America.
North America. So that's 4 continents watching today. Thank you all so much.
Did Travis manage to get in? I know he's been real busy.
I don't know
so-
if Travis has been watching there, but I brought Travis up here, your
Yeah.
son, another one of our young men who is making America safe. There you are, Travis. Good to see you, boy.
And that's at the Swedish launch facility, 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle in Sweden.
Really?
Yeah, he was just
I
there a
didn't
couple
know
of weeks
you
ago.
could go 200 miles north and not fall off the edge of the earth. Really?
Yeah, you just hang
Travis,
out,
thank
hang
you
out
so
with
much.
the reindeer. So yeah,
Your dad's so
Thank
proud of you, and we are too. He's been on the show here. I've met his
Yeah.
daughter, Rebecca, and great family up there, and your wife, your lovely wife. So
Yeah.
hello to her. So we thank everyone for watching. Let's see. I wanted to put one of the final pictures. The USAC boys got it coming in there into the area there. It looks like they cut a tail hole in there. John Glenn did the honors. I'm not sure exactly when that was. Tommy, you could maybe tell me. But John Glenn, who's passed away, was 77 years old when he crawled through that hatch.
Yes.
I'm not 77. And I wouldn't, no way would I go to space at my age. I know I would be barfing from one moment
that's
to the
not
next.
on your wish list.
Nah,
Oh.
I'm being a realist. I got that inner ear problem stuff going on. Maybe.
Astronauts asked me, would I be willing to fly into space? I said, if I had built the spacecraft, I would fly on it.
Okay. And then here she is, so beautiful at the Udvar Hazy. Marty Winkles is why I got to go see it personally myself. Thank you, Marty. We took a road trip I'll never forget. Great time there, Marty. It's beautiful. There's some aspects of it that you don't see on Atlantis, like they have the covers off of the attach points to
Yes.
of the SR of the ET
Well, yeah, because Atlantis has to be held up above the guests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
couldn't have the,
Right.
And that's the TDRS tracking data relay station over it there. They do a good job there, but of course, Endeavor is being put in a configuration of the stack out in Los
Oh,
Angeles.
really?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
we did a show on that. Now, if you're a Stay Curious fan, go look that up. Last Friday, I think we did a.
I would do
yeah,
that.
Tim Keyser was
update.
just out there moving
Really?
it. So yeah, he's the
Okay.
one who took him and Jimmy Jeffers who took
Yeah.
Discovery to Washington.
So quite amazing, guys. This legacy, 39 missions of this beautiful orbiter. You said she could be ready to go up there again. Dave Stangy's got his little granddaughter, Mia. Sorry we didn't get to say hi to you, Mia. Look at these beautiful colors here around the space shuttle. Those are all the patches and missions. And artists did that. So many ways to be part of the space
Yeah.
shuttle. Whether you're an artist, an engineer, or the broom crew.
Yeah.
Broom crew, yeah.
You know the broom crew?
Oh, yeah, well, certainly. Everybody's helped with the brooms.
Were you on the broom crew
Uh,
putting that?
Out in
Tell us what the broom crew is, okay?
when the landing gear doors, to close them, they go up so far hydraulically, and then they stop. So you close them with the broom. It looks like a broom. It is, yeah.
It's a special pad,
It's a
but the
special
first
pad,
time they
but-
ever did it, they took the janitor's floor brooms and wrapped them with elephant hide. It's a special pad in it,
Right.
and used them to push the doors closed.
Push the doors closed because the hydraulics can only do so much.
And you say the great and humble Bob Cabana was on the broom crew?
Yes, he was.
Well,
Yeah.
He requested it one
He,
time,
he
didn't
did request it, yes.
He's, of course, the 12-year NASA administrator who only flew to space 4 times.
Yeah.
I was around him quite a bit during the memorial celebrations. Just a great guy. He's Bob Cabana.
Still lives locally, so.
Yes. So Goblin Times just joined us. Thank you for joining our family. They say space is awesome. And I think we have to agree with them. And Michael Bruno says the shuttles will never be forgotten. Beautiful, ingenious vehicles which flew successfully the very first time, which was almost unbelievable.
Yes.
And if they're still putting them on the side of the Brevard County police cars, even the brand new ones have the
Yeah.
shuttle
Oh,
on the
really?
front of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at least there they won't be forgotten.
Jay, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
You really,
Appreciate
you
it.
really enhanced Stay Curious today. And thank you, Terry,
Enjoyed
for
it.
Yeah,
bringing
he didn't have to put up with just me.
Thanks for bringing this up. Well, you got your suitcase full of tricks that are always great to do. But we want to see you back, my friend,
All
and
right.
become part of our family
I'll do
here.
that, sure.
involved
I've
in
enjoyed
there.
it. I like to talk, and my wife will tell you that.
Good, good. Well, sure she'll enjoy watching this today. Tell everybody that we do this Monday through Friday at 4 o'clock live on YouTube. We've been doing it since March 23rd, 2020. Be celebrating our 5th year with Marty Winkle, my co-producer, who's so faithful on this show. He could just say, I don't want to do it anymore and enjoy his retirement. But I think, Marty, you enjoyed today as much as I did. And another great program from you on the Streamlabs side there. So thank you, everybody. Tomorrow we'll do some news of the week. Look around at the double launches we had. 2
Yeah,
launches
yesterday,
within
yeah.
4 hours yesterday. One going to the moon, another one putting those communication satellites up. It's just noisy, these rockets around here, isn't it, Jay?
They're not as noisy as the shuttle.
Yeah.
The sound of the shuttle, if you were launching at near the VAB, the twang that comes off I guess because of the corrugated steel on the vehicle assembly building, it's something you never forget hearing.
Huh.
It was a twang.
Well, you guys have enjoyed that
Yes.
like I never could. So I appreciate y'all sharing it here as usual. So until tomorrow, I'm Mark Marquette saying, thanking these gentlemen, national treasures, and thanking you for watching. And I'll see you again to bridge the space between us.